Hi friend! If you are new to the Connect with Capri YouTube channel, welcome. You have absolutely no idea how excited I am that you are here today. And if you're not new, welcome back. Thank you so much for returning. You are amazing. So you'll have to excuse the fact that I am wearing the same clothes, the same makeup, the same hair as the last video. I just had 2 videos to film today and I just didn't feel like changing. So here we are, but I have a story time for you guys today, and it is a doozy. And I might ramble a little bit, so you'll have to forgive me, but go ahead and get your snacks and a drink and get settled in because it's gonna be a minute. I love long story times though, so it doesn't bother me at all. So I want to start off by giving you guys a little bit of a background first. So for the longest time, my family and I went down to Florida every year, except for like 1 year we went to Georgia and we were like, no, never again. So we would get a condo, we would stay for the week. It was always a great time. As my sisters and I got older, things kind of started changing a little bit, obviously, as a family does. My parents were still going with my youngest sister, however, as older girls started doing our own thing. But I absolutely love Florida. I would move there if I could. I might still at some point, you never know. But I really started missing going. And I was at a time where I was doing a lot of releasing, and I felt like I needed to go down there by myself to be able to not finish, but to get to a certain point. Like, I just felt like I needed to go down there and be by myself and just do what I needed to do. So that's what I did. I found an Airbnb, super duper cute. I got my plane tickets and I rented a car. So because of the hurricane situation there at that time, there were like no rental cars at the airport for this specific company. And I don't remember where the rental car, like the other location I went to was. I want to say Destin, but I'm really not too sure on that, so don't quote me on that. But wherever it was, I had to go to a different location than the airport to get my car. So I was fine with that. It was whatever. I was gonna Uber there, get my car, go to my Airbnb. Perfect, great. So I get to the airport, I go through security. The airport I went through when I was living back home was small, and I was used to it because my family and I had flown numerous times, and so it was just easy peasy lemon squeezy, literally probably the same gate like every time. Okay, so I get there, I go through security, I sit there, I wait for my plane, get on the plane. Flight is amazing, no issue whatsoever. I just had a carry-on, so I didn't have to check any bags or anything. So as soon as we landed, I got my stuff and I got an Uber to take me to the rental car place, which was like 30 minutes away from the airport. So I get in this Uber and I'm like, hey, like, take me here. And he was like, oh, okay. So we pull into the parking lot and he's like, are you sure this is this place? And I was like, yeah, that's what it says. And he was like, okay. So it was not like I was expecting it to be. This place was in like a deserted strip mall situation, and I was just kind of sketched out, but like I needed a car. Like I was gonna have to have a way to get around, and I didn't want to Uber everywhere because that would get expensive. So I find this rental car place, and it was COVID season, so they weren't allowing people to go inside. Everything was like on the sidewalk. And so I go up and I give them my name. They're like, okay, hold on just a second, we'll go get the car. I'm like, great, perfect, this is gonna be like seamless, flawless, like it's gonna be so fast. So they get my car and they bring it around the front, and if you've never rented a car before, like you go around and you like look at the car and with the worker, and you look to see if there's any scratches or anything like that, so that way they don't try to blame anything on you later, basically. And you're gonna bring it back as is. So I was going around this car, and this lady was not very friendly to begin with, and then I started pointing out things that were wrong with the car, because I obviously didn't want to bring it back and then be like, oh, scratches or dents or whatever. And so I was like pointing things out, and she was like, okay, like being all rude. And I was like, look, I'm sorry, you told me to do this. So we get done with that part, and she was like, okay, gave me my total. And I was like, all right, cool. And I handed her my credit card. I specifically had 3 times the amount on the credit card that I was gonna need for the car, just in case anything were to happen. And she puts my card in the machine, and she's like, huh, it declined. And I was like, what? How did it decline? And she was like, I don't know. And of course, like, it's so ridiculous, but sometimes whenever a card declines, whoever is trying to help you gets like snooty about it. And I had already had problems with this chick because she wasn't very nice to begin with. So I was like, oh great, like this is just wonderful. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And she was like, well, it's declining, so we're gonna have to have another source of payment. And I was like, okay. So I gave her my debit card. Now, it was fine. I had no problem using my debit card. That wasn't an issue. I hadn't planned on that, but it is what it is. So I handed her my debit card, and she's like, is that a debit card? And I said, yeah. And she was like, I can't take that. And started laughing at me and was like, where are you from? And I was like, Missouri. And she's like, yeah, we can't take that. It has to be an in-state license for us to be able to take that. So I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? And she was like, I don't know, but it's declining. And just kept telling me that right in the front of everybody else that was standing on the sidewalk, because we were all outside. So she was like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this car back, and you're gonna call your credit card company and see what you can get done. And I was like on the verge of tears, because I am literally stranded in Florida with no car, and now my credit card has been blocked because it has been declined, and I had absolutely no idea why. So I sit down in a chair outside. It is hot. It is not summer, but it's still hot in Florida. And so I'm sweating, and I'm on the verge of tears, and I text my mom, and I'm like, my credit card declined. And she was like, what? That's crazy. And she was like, well, hold on. So she does something, texts me back, and is like, will they take a card over the phone? And she was just gonna pay for it, and I was gonna pay her back. And I was like, I don't know. Everybody is ignoring me now. Like, I've at this point been out there for like 5 minutes, and no worker has come to like ask me like, are you okay? Have you figured it out? Nothing. So I'm like, I don't know. Everybody's ignoring me because my card declined, and now I look like incompetent. And I was just going through it. And so I ended up going inside since nobody was going to help me. And I was like, excuse me. And so the guy that was working there came up, and you could tell like he felt bad for me because he could tell I was upset. And he probably knew that other lady wasn't very nice. So he was like, can I help you? And I was like, can I pay for this over the phone? Like a card over the phone? And he was like, no, I'm sorry, we have to have it on site. And I was like, okay, great. So I call my credit card company, because obviously my mom couldn't help me. I had no other credit card that I could use at that time, and they wouldn't take my debit card because I had an out-of-state license, which is fine. I understand that. It is what it is. That's their policy, whatever. The thing that I had a problem with was how rude she was and that I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. So I called my credit card company. Turns out they had quoted me one number and tried to run my credit card for a significant amount more than that, plus a holding fee, which they hadn't told me about. And I know a lot of places do that. I was just not made aware of that. And again, it's their policy. It is what it is. But yeah, so they tried to run my card for a much bigger amount than what they were supposed to. And it locked my card and they couldn't run it more than once. So I was like, okay, great. So they couldn't help me. My credit card company couldn't unlock it. It had to be 24 hours. And I was stranded at this rental car place with no idea what I was going to do. So I told my mom they're not going to give me a car and there's nothing I can do about it. And again, still on the verge of tears, I get another Uber. Now, this Uber drive was another 30 to 40 minutes from this location. So I would be in an Uber 30 minutes to the rental car place, 30 to 40 minutes to my Airbnb, because I was staying the specific place that I felt like I needed to stay, and it is what it is. So I call another Uber. I get in. It is an older gentleman. I'm not saying he's like old, but he's probably like 50-ish. If he ever sees this and he's not 50-ish, he's gonna be like, girl, but whatever. Anyway, so I get in. He's a very nice gentleman and he's like, what's going on? And so I told him what happened, and I'm like trying not to cry in his back seat. And he was like, it's okay, it's fine, when are you leaving? And like just trying to make small talk with me. And I was like, my flight is at 7 a.m. on Sunday. He was like, oh yeah, that's early. And I was like, yeah, I know. See my problem? That's why I wanted a rental car, so I wouldn't have to figure out how I was going to get to the airport. And he was like, yeah, I don't know if any Ubers are going to be up that early, because you're gonna have to leave your Airbnb by like 4 a.m. to get to the airport in time to go through security and everything. And I was like, exactly. So I ended up crying in his backseat. I don't know if he knew or not, but I did. I cried. And I was so upset with how I was treated. And I was so upset that things weren't going how I had planned for them to, because I was super big on controlling every little thing up until this point. So I get to my Airbnb. My phone is almost dead at this point. The phone has the Airbnb key code in it. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because it was not time for me to check in yet. And so I was basically just, again, stranded outside my Airbnb with my luggage, just trying to figure something out. My phone's almost dead. I have nowhere to charge it, to my knowledge. And thank goodness I had on my Apple Watch, which did have charge on it. So I took a screenshot of the code for the door to my Airbnb and sent it to my mom and was like, I am sending this to you so that I can look at our messages on my watch and can look at the code whenever it's time for me to get in, because that's the only way I'm going to have access to the code. So I probably sat outside for so long. It was hours, like literally hours. And it was hot and I was sweaty and I was upset. And I was in a place where it was like a little town. It was so cute. It's Alice Beach down in Florida. It's right next to Rosemary Beach. They're kind of all like interconnected, but there was a lot for me to look at and stuff, so I was able to like go on a walk and kind of just try to get myself to calm down. And then I had the thought, like, I had brought a carry-on and I had shoved so many clothes and things in there, and I didn't have any room for deodorant, shampoo and conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, any of that stuff. And my plan had been to take my rental car to the store to get the things that I hadn't brought with me. Well, didn't have a rental car. So I was like, all right, this is just great. So I finally get into my Airbnb and I'm like, what am I going to do? I had no food. I had nothing besides clothes and a little bit of makeup in my bag. Like, that was it. So I found a Target and put in an order and had it Instacarted to me. And of course, that was extra money that I hadn't planned on using out of my bank account, because again, my credit card was locked. And I was just like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Guys, the universe has a very strong way of getting your attention. Because the big thing for me at that point in time was learning how to not have control over every little thing. So I was stranded in Florida on multiple occasions with no food, no nothing, but some clothes and some makeup. And it was the universe's way of being like, I said no control. And it still makes me roll my eyes to this day, because I should have listened, and if I would have listened, I probably wouldn't have been stranded down in Florida. But it all came together because I ended up having a good time, and I had to walk everywhere. And I ended up finding out that there were all sorts of little shops and stuff down the street from me, and it was very relaxing because I couldn't really go anywhere unless I was walking, and I definitely got my steps in, and I saw a lot of things that I wouldn't have seen if I had been driving. There was a town like right next to Alice Beach that I walked around a lot in because I didn't have anything else to do. I was like, might as well just walk to walk. So I found all sorts of little places. I found a great bookstore. I found all sorts of little candy stores and little food places that I wouldn't have seen if I hadn't been walking, and beautiful, beautiful homes that were just gorgeous. I definitely wouldn't have seen any of those if I hadn't been walking. And I saw so many signs from the universe telling me exactly where I was supposed to be was where I was. And it was just a great experience after the fact. I did not enjoy myself at the beginning, but by the end I was like, okay, this is why all of this stuff happened. And I was able to go to the beach one day, and because I was just there for the weekend. So I went to the beach one day and I just sat there. I put my hands in the sand, I put my feet in the sand, and I just cried. I just released so much from not only the experience I had with the rental car and like everything going awry for a minute, but also things that I had needed to release a long time ago. And it was so crazy because as I was sitting there with my hands and feet in the sand crying, it was like I was invisible. Like nobody even looked at me. Like this beach was busy, and it was like I was completely cloaked. Nobody bothered me. Nobody even looked at me. I was just able to sit there and do what I needed to do. which is why I had gone down there in the first place. Besides the universe being like, hey, we're gonna send her here because she needs to learn the hard way, not to try to control everything. So, hi, President Whitney here, because past Whitney forgot an important part of the story. I don't know really what happened there, but it is what it is. And I also didn't like the outro to that video, so I'm just gonna add to this and end it here at home. So, you're probably like wondering, like, how did you make it home? Well, remember my Uber driver that picked me up from the awful car experience and took me to the Airbnb? Well, he, was worried about me getting back to the airport because he was like, I don't know if any, Ubers are going to be running that early, or that late, whichever way you look at it, because it was basically in the middle of the night. So he actually gave me his phone number so that I could contact him if I didn't end up getting a rental car, because he was like, well, maybe you can go back to the rental car place in 24 hours when they unlock your card and you can actually figure that out and get one. And I was like, no chance. But I was like, okay. And so I ended up texting him and I was like, I'm not going to even deal with trying to get another rental car. Like, if the offer still stands, will you come pick me up? And he was like, absolutely. So this man left his house at like 3:20 in the morning to come pick me up at my Airbnb by 4 a.m. and take me to the airport. And it was just so nice. Like, I am a firm believer that angels are here on earth, and he was one of them because he was amazing. Made me feel so safe. It didn't have any issues. Basically saved my trip. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I still have his number in my phone. And every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should text him and be like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but like, you freaking saved my life, because I was gonna have an awful experience if it was not for you making me feel better and for coming and getting me to take me to the airport so early. And we didn't go through Uber when he was taking me to the airport. We just, it was just like a personal money exchange through like Cash App or Venmo. It doesn't really matter, but and he gave me a discount. So it was just like all around a good experience. And you're probably thinking it probably wasn't very safe for you like not to go through an app, but he made me feel so safe, and I knew I was protected anyway. And yeah, he was just a whole angel, and it was an awesome experience. And he was married, and he realized while we were on our way to the airport that his wife was also out Ubering, and I don't know if maybe he left the house before her or something, so he didn't realize it, but he actually called her on speakerphone while we were on our way, and we like all three had a conversation, and she was really cool too. So it was a great ending to an interesting trip for sure. She's also a Cowboys fan, and if you don't know me, well, Dak Prescott is just... So anyway, yeah, so that's how the story actually ended. I don't know why I didn't end it. I don't know what happened in the original video, but yeah, anyway. So thank you guys for listening. I so appreciate you. Remember, you are amazing. Remember to stay present, stay where your feet are, and I will see you soon.